Good afternoon to all of you. As we continue to see heavy fighting in many parts of the Ukraine with civilian casualties and damage to civilian infrastructure, the human toll of this conflict is becoming clearer each passing day. The Secretary General is very concerned about the use of heavy weapons against urban centers in Ukraine. These weapons can have a horrific impact on civilian population. I also want to state unequivocally that the Secretary General strongly repudiates in any shape or form all discrimination based on race, religion, ethnicity in the context of this conflict, as well as in terms of the treatment of people trying to leave Ukraine to seek refuge in another country. Today in Geneva, the Secretary General joined the Emergency Relief Coordinator, Martin Griffiths, and the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, at the launch of the Coordinated Emergency Appeal for a combined $1.7 billion to urgently deliver humanitarian support to the people of Ukraine and refugees in neighboring countries. At the conclusion, Mr. Griffiths announced $1.5 billion in pledges for the humanitarian appeals. We obviously welcome this generous outpouring of support to the humanitarian relief efforts, including our interagency appeals. This is among the fastest and most generous responses a humanitarian flash appeal has ever received. We thank member states and partners for their generous show of support for the people of Ukraine. And as always, we call on people to quickly convert pledges into cash. As in his remarks, the Secretary General noted that in the past week, Ukraine has been thrown into chaos, a region that has been upended, and the reverberations are being felt around the world. He stressed that the international community must give them our unequivocal support and that we must help Ukrainians help each other and through this terrible time. The Secretary General emphasized that we and our partners are committed to supporting all those affected in accordance with the humanitarian principles of neutrality, impartiality, independence, and humanity. Mr. Guterres stressed that the most effective humanitarian relief is to silence the guns now, and more than ever, we must intensify our efforts for peace everywhere. Quick update on what is actually going on the ground. Our humanitarian colleagues tell us that despite immense response challenges, UN agencies and non-governmental organizations and other humanitarian partners continue to deliver life-saving humanitarian assistance, including in hard-to-reach areas. On Sunday, UNHCR delivered its first truckload of household materials to central Ukraine for families in evacuation shelters and others in need. UNICEF and its partners are mobilizing to treat the mental and emotional damage caused by the conflict, and the first shipments of the World Food Programme are on their way from Turkey to Ukraine. Between the 24th and the 28th of February, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights recorded at least 536 civilian casualties, including 136 killed, with real figures fearing to be much higher. Hundreds of thousands of people have fled their homes in the last days, as we've seen. And a quick update to you from neighboring Moldova, where the UN team is helping authorities address the needs of more than 70,000 refugees from Ukraine who have arrived in Moldova so far. UNHCR is rushing aid as quickly as possible. The UN has taken several assessment trips to the Moldova-Ukraine border and has provided over 3,000 dignity kits for women, girls, and the elderly. We're also working on COVID-19 prevention measures by providing supplies such as hand sanitizers, face masks, respirators, and pulse oximeters, as well as food and hygiene products. We're also providing special accommodations for women and children, as well as LGBTQI families and couples. More support is on its way. And from South Sudan, a new joint report by the UN Mission and the UN Human Rights Office has found that grave human rights violations and abuses, including hundreds of killings, were committed against civilians during fighting in Tambora County in West Equatoria State last summer. Between June and September of 2021, at least 440 civilians were killed during clashes between groups. At least 64 civilians were subject to conflict-related sexual violence, among them a 13-year-old girl who was gang raped to death. In addition, some 80,000 men, women, and children were forced to flee their homes to escape the fighting. The High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, stressed that accountability is critical to deter further violations. And also on South Sudan, the UN mission and the World Food Programme spoke out against the attempted ambush of an interagency UN convoy yesterday. 59 trucks carrying World Food Programme food and supplies was attacked by armed gunmen in Jonglei State. The UN peacekeeping mission was protecting the convoy, which was en route to pre-position aid for 95,000 people ahead of the rainy season. A UN peacekeeper suffered a gunshot wound and is thankfully in stable condition. The acting humanitarian coordinator, Meshach Malo, called the continued attacks on aid workers and the attempted looting of vital relief supplies a flagrant violation of international humanitarian law. Such incidents, he said, derail the ability of humanitarian workers to deliver life-saving assistance to people in need during the limited window of opportunity available to reach them. And on a happier note, we wish our colleagues at Radio Okapi, the UN radio in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a happy birthday. The UN peacekeeping mission's radio station is now 20 years old. Over the years, it has become a trusted, reliable source of information with programming for adults and children available across the country in multiple languages. The mission marked the anniversary with the events in the cities where the radio broadcasts from and celebrates 20th year of work in the service of peace. Today is Zero Discrimination Day under the theme Remove Laws That Harm, Create Laws That Empower. This year, the joint UN program on HIV/AIDS is highlighting the urgent needs to take action against discriminatory laws. UNAIDS notes that in many countries, laws result in people being treated differently, excluded from essential services, or being subject to undue restrictions on how they live their lives because simply of who they are, what they do, and who they love. Such laws are discriminatory. They deny human rights and fundamental freedoms. As a reminder, in about 49 minutes, Ambassador Lana Nusabe, permanent representative of the United Arab Emirates, will be here to brief you on the program of work for the month of March. And we say a big thank you to our friends in Pretoria, as South Africa has now paid its regular budget dues, bringing us up to 56.